There's a quiet beauty in things we've left behind. It's not always obvious, though. At first, it's just the soft realization that something you once knew, something that felt so permanent and familiar, is now gone. Maybe it was a game you spent long hours playing on those summer nights. Or a website you used to visit that was a home away from home. We don't notice these disappearances when they happen. One day, you just stop checking in. Life takes over. And then years later, you try to go back, but you can't. All of your friends, the regulars you saw, were last online 10 years ago. The last forum post was a little bit more recent, but you don't recognize any of the names. And you can't, for the life of you, remember which email account you used to sign in. These digital playgrounds we once explored are no longer ours to visit. But there's also comfort in knowing that they existed. Brief as they seemed, they were real. And you were there. Hello, viewer. Unfortunately, the people behind Heaveno.com might have taken issue with what I just said. Between 2001 and 2014, this website advocated for replacing hello with Heaveno because hello had the word hell in it. According to them, the universal greeting, Heaveno, would be a symbol of peace, friendship, and welcome. Quote, "Let us now begin working towards the next 100 years with a more harmonious, intelligent, and positive new universal greeting, Heaveno." The items on the sidebar menu were greeting, resolution, proclamation, article, and proposals. I started with greeting, which took me to a page about the history of greetings. More specifically, the word hello. Author and poet Geoffrey Chaucer established hallo as the universal greeting in the 14th century. This claim, I believe, because about 2,000 English words that we use some form of today appeared for the first time in Chaucer's works, which included classics like Canterbury Tales. However, according to Wikipedia, Chaucer died on October 25, 1400, at the estimated age of 56 to 57 years old. This puts him at being born around 1343. This website claimed that Chaucer was born in 1340, and then said that he lived during the 12th century, which was actually 1100 to 1199, so no, Chaucer did not live during the 12th century. He lived during the 14th and very briefly the 15th centuries. Might have been a mistake on their part, or maybe it was on mine because the columns weren't labeled. Next on the list was William Shakespeare, who they claimed established halloo as the greeting in the 16th century. Afterward, some unnamed person in the US established hullo with a U as the greeting. Then, in what they called the 20th century, but was actually the 19th century because it happened in 1878, Thomas Edison spoke his first word into a telephone. Hello. And it changed the world forever. According to the website, hello took life in 1878 when Thomas Alva Edison said the first word through the newly invented telephone. The news media was not around at the time to give us an accurate account. He could have said hello jokingly and mistakenly misprinted. The fact is that hello was printed by Noah Webster's dictionary in 1883. The telephone kept expanding, and so did the greeting. As the greeting hello kept growing, it soon became a general greeting. Webster's dictionary kept on printing hello as a greeting word. Alexander Graham Bell rejected the hello greeting all his life. His greeting was ahoy ahoy. The dictionaries became a standard foundation for the language and continued to promote the word as our standard greeting. We never questioned it. We took it for granted and learned it as it was always there. And strangely enough, It has become our most used word on a daily basis. I is the second. This negative phenomenon possibly has set its pattern. We have been too busy and too involved in our daily doings to see the whole picture. Until a person born in Kingsville, Texas, questioned the connotation of the word hello. The O is not enough to hide the most negative word, hell, printed in every dictionary. This greeting word, hello, has been upon us for 117 years. Maybe subconsciously, we have promoted and fueled the wrong message. Let's now understand that we all have been misled. We should now put it behind us and call the 20th century negative and obsolete. We should now set a new example and set a new precedent. It is up to us now to make a change and start setting and paving a new road for our youth and ourselves. Let's show the rest of the world that we are united, friendly, and unique people. The timeline ends with 21st century. Heaven O. Leonzo Canales Jr. The next page I went to was called Resolution. It was a somewhat cryptic mission statement of Kleberg County, Texas, adopting Heaven O as their official greeting and as a symbol of peace, friendship, and welcome. It also commended Canales Jr. for his positive approach to greeting people, the national attention he brought to their county, and his dedication to the community. It says whereas a lot, even when it doesn't make sense. I don't know what's up with that, I just noticed that it's a bit strange. At the bottom were 4 signatures. Cursive looks no different than abstract art to me, so I couldn't read half the names. I looked up the ones that I could understand, and one of the guys was on the Commissioner's Court, which is the governing body of a county, while another was a church leader who lived in San Antonio and founded 2 churches. San Antonio was about 2 hours north of Kleberg County. The next page on the navigation menu was Proclamation, and it was essentially the same as Resolution, except it was the mayor of Kingsville who was praising Canales Jr. The whereases were in this one too. The page titled Article seemed to be an excerpt lifted from an article about Canales Jr., written by Maggie from Washington. The link to a letter from Maggie was not archived. Also, she had a common last name, and I don't know if it was Washington State or Washington, D.C. I looked for this letter or article, but that turned out to be a dead end. The final page, Proposal, was not about marriage, but instead was a letter to the Kingsville County Superintendent about the school district adopting Heaven O as a greeting. Quote, "The hello greeting is a generational curse on our language and society. The time has come to break this negative paradigm. This responsibility rests upon us all. If our children could just but glimpse at their imminent future, they would demand it. We have a sacred obligation to posterity to help create a world worthy of being inherited. The adoption is stated as follows. I am respectfully requesting a unanimous vote, January 13th, 1998, adopting Kingsville's and Kleberg County's official greeting, Heaven O, for use in our Kingsville Independent School District's kindergarten and elementary schools. This daily salutation would help to emphasize Heaven O as a symbol of peace, friendship, and welcome among our impressionable youth who thirst for direction and look to us for positive leadership. I looked up Leonzo Canales Jr. to see where he was today, and sadly, he passed away on September 26, 2014, according to this obituary. And there was one comment below it. Hello. This actually explains why the site went down right around that time. I wish peace and strength to Canales Jr.'s loved ones. And I'm curious if the people of Kingsville and Kleberg County still say Heaven O to this day. The Elinari. We are elves of similar philosophy, culture, and worldviews who have been born into human bodies here on Earth, said their homepage. We seek to understand ourselves by understanding our past, our present, and our potential futures. Elinari.net was once home to a blog by supposed elves who lived among the human population. Upon going to the site, you're greeted by a mostly purple and lavender landing page with standard web design for the time, a banner up top, a site logo, and a sidebar menu with the list of the pages on the site. I had no idea what this group was all about, so I went to the frequently asked questions and philosophy page. The Elinari were elves who came from a particular set of worlds and had common histories and cultures. According to the site, the word Elinari was derived from Tolkien's Elvish language and translates to Elven People of the Stars. They also clarified that while the word Elinari was used to refer to elves, it could also be used to refer to sapient dragons, unicorns, Wendigo, some races of humans, and dwarves that came from their homeworlds. The homeworlds they claimed to have come from were, and bear with me here, Sellar, Alvaron, Elfame, Brightmoon, and Shiri. Hailing from these worlds were different ethnicities of elves, the Tulari, Listari, and Draystari, as well as their subcultures, the Kalthilas, Daeri, and Gaieri. Outside of sounding like obscure cryptocurrencies, they're actually pretty cool names, and after reading about it, I think the lore behind them is really cool. Apparently, the Elinari were on Earth because they were fleeing the corruption, an alien entity that had taken over their homeworlds and perverted the other creatures they used to coexist with. The next page I went to was titled, A Perspective on What Defines Us, written by someone named Silenial. Silenial went over a few beliefs that made the Elinari unique, but emphasized that this portrayal was based on personal experiences and might not apply to all Elinari. Central to Elinari beliefs was Destai, a philosophy akin to the Tao from Chinese religion or the Force from Star Wars. It represented living in harmony with the flow of the universe. When one was on this path, life flowed smoothly. But when one was off of it, referred to as Nestai, challenges would arise. Because of this philosophy, Elinari tended to be honorable, accountable, and honest. Elinari were also individualistic, traditional, and cherished familial connections, but also preferred polyamorous relationships, meaning that they liked to have multiple romantic partners. The next page I looked at was about the culture of Sellar, one of the homeworlds. It was about the different elves that lived there, based on memory fragments from the author, someone named Dan. I'm gonna take a minute to mention that it's mildly funny how this site has all these unique names like Silenial, Estara, and Arhuain, and then there's just somebody named Dan. Good on you, Dan. Embrace your name, you make it unique. I found that their lore was very similar to the elves from the Elder Scrolls series, but hey, great minds think alike. This site also came out in 2001, which was before Skyrim, Oblivion, and even Morrowind, and definitely before that series became mainstream. Although I wouldn't call anything about this site mainstream, so maybe they knew about the earlier games and took inspiration. And also, I will fully admit my ignorance here, I have not read much of Tolkien, so maybe it does take inspiration from his interpretation of elves as well. The rest of the pages here went deeper into the lore, focusing on specifics and fleshing out what we already knew. Some of them linked to the sites of other supposed elves telling their stories and educating us on what they knew. I moved on to the next item on the navigation menu, Art and Essays, which took me to Silenial's Grove, a collection of her poetry and the music she liked. The next section was called Elves, The URL slug was called contributors, so this must have been where the guest writers left their mark. As with the rest of the site, it added to the lore of the Elinari. The Khater Ali of Til Quintas by Akaelquert, AQ, respectively, talked about another planet where a species separate from the elves came from, and The Elven Way by Island Blue Sky discussed the effects of living by elven philosophy. One that caught my eye was, "Are you an elf?" Curious to see if I was an elf, I took a look at that one, and the answer was, "Only you can say." Quote, "Often, individuals come to us and ask what we think they are. But while we might have our opinions, what matters is what they say they are. To say that one is an elf, etc., is to declare one's path. It is a pronouncement of spiritual direction and aspiration." The page titled Magical Beings established that the Elinari were part of a community called Otherworld, and recommended visiting a few other sites that were quite similar to this one. The final item on the menu was called Contact, which had contact information for Silenial and another individual named Estara, who was the point of contact for contributions to the language. There was also an invitation to write on their message board, so I went there next. There were only 2 snapshots. The first was in May 2001, which showed only one post by Riluine titled, "Anyone out there?" And I guess the answer was no because nobody responded. Fast forward to June 2001, a few more posts had appeared on the message board, one of the users being Silenial. Unfortunately, the discussion threads themselves were not archived, so I'll never find out what Alia was pondering or why Caleb was sorry. Elinari.net is actually still online as of the making of this video. The design hasn't changed too much, but the updates page, the copyright page, and a few other signs on the site tell me that it hasn't been updated in a while. Some of the links also seem to be broken. I wonder if it's up as a sort of time capsule, or maybe the site owner just forgot about it and the domain kept renewing, or they just bought it for a really long time when they registered. I checked on ICANN and learned that the registration was created in January 2000, which checks out, but was updated in October 2023 and goes throughout January 20th, 2029. Wow. I wonder how my channel will be doing when that date rolls around. Elinari.net reminded me a lot of Sanguinarius.org, which I covered in another video. A safe harbor for people who might not have found kinship in their lives offline, so they turned to the internet to find others like them. And it paid off. The internet had it all, and I wish them the best. How do you respond to tornadoes? If your answer is violence, TornadoFighters.com might have been for you. The brainchild of Brad from Nevada, this site was home to a hypothetical tornado mitigation service. Have you had enough with tornado devastation? The landing page asked. Quote, "The advancements made in tornado detection has put the ball in man's court as far as the next step in tornado defense, the stopping of the tornado and its dastardly evil. Following, I'll try to convince you to protect your lives and property from the tornado. I've been promoting tornado destruction for 3 years now. People have said that they saw something on Discovery Channel or somewhere about stopping the tornado, but I haven't seen it. The powers at hand, government, NOAA, NWS, which are National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and National Weather Service, respectively, are dragging their feet as far as stopping the tornado. Parentheses, my bad, they're not doing anything proactive. All I can see is we have to save ourselves. Money talks, everything else gets to shut up. Continued forecasting is paramount. But the last outbreak of tornadoes, November 6th through 11th, 2002, Alabama to Ohio, killed 25 to 35 people. I heard as many as 70 tornadoes touched down. NOAA and NWS can't deal with this kind of terror. We must start protecting ourselves. Americans, don't cower. How many times do you have to be hit before you hit back? Below that was an animation, a demo, showing off their plan. And quite frankly, I think it's a rock-solid plan. The first menu item was titled, "Why Tornado Fighters?" The answer to that question, in all caps, was, because tornadoes kill people and wreck property, to the billions of dollars yearly. So what exactly were tornado fighters? Well, tornado fighters were like firefighters, except they fought tornadoes. And instead of water, they used rockets and lasers. Do you really think you can intercept and stop a wicked phantom tornado? The short answer was yes. What will it cost? Brad's guess was a first-year startup cost of about $400,000 and an overall cost of about $2,400,000. The next menu item was called laser beams, which had a wall of text speculating about the effects of firing 2 to 5 dozen laser beams at tornadoes. Next was Rockets Tornado Control, which had a comprehensive history of efforts and speculation about tornado mitigation. And quite frankly, it was a little bit hard to follow. I'm not a meteorologist, storm chaser, or any kind of authority on firing weapons at tornadoes, so it might just be going over my head. The next page, Fine Points, proposed that 5 sticks of dynamite in a warhead fired at a tornado was a good starting point, and eventually they should work their way up to using C4. He proposed that this could be done by a 3-person team that included at least 1 meteorologist. He also argued that fireworks should be set off to warn airplanes that were passing through the area. The page called Cost Effectiveness talked about how beneficial the tornado fighters would be to insurance companies, and he even mentioned writing to multiple insurance companies to fund the tornado fighters. One company got back to him, but presumably they said no. The page titled Correspondence had some decent advice for protecting yourself from tornadoes, and signs that a tornado would happen soon, as well as setting up a safe room for when a tornado hits. Donations was self-explanatory. Updates was a timeline of recent tornadoes with commentary from Brad, celebrating if there were no casualties, and urging the need for a tornado mitigation service if there were. Their forums were thankfully archived, which now I think is a first while researching these videos, so that's pretty cool. It looks like they had a few boards with different topics. Tornado Fighters Forum, Phase 3, Entertainment, Politics in all caps, Republicans in all caps, followed by an ellipsis, John Hannity, General Info, T-Mobile, Class Action Suit, Throttled iNet Speed. Some of these sounded very specific, so maybe they were meant to be individual discussions and not entire boards. I mean, the T-Mobile board only had 2 topics and one of them was about Sprint. Going back to the main site, the next items on the menu after forums were laser beam budget and rockets budget, which gave a detailed cost breakdown of each of the projects. And hey, $50K a year to shoot rockets and lasers at a tornado? Regardless of your opinion on Brad, he was out here creating jobs. We all know what the Contact Us page was, but the final menu item was Activity, which showed website visitor stats. They reached almost 19,000 site visits, which is actually quite impressive. considering both the year and the oddball nature of this website. Unfortunately, their forums didn't see as much action because, according to this statistic at the bottom, the most users they ever had online concurrently was 30. The site is still up today, actually, as of the making of this video, and still showing off its dated web design, but staunchly holding on and spreading its message. Brad's full name was rather common, so I couldn't pinpoint him exactly. Weather modification is an on and off topic on the internet, so you might find a few articles out there talking about this website. All the best to Brad and his tornado fighters. Websites aren't the only thing that get lost to the void. Sometimes it's the source code for a video game. Other times it's a video from long ago. Every now and then, it's a written story. And this particular story was so horrific and gut-wrenching that one reviewer allegedly said that it was desperately difficult to read, that it took a combination of obsession and masochism to finish. Yet, this story is nowhere to be found. Following the trail leads you to a strange mystery with an unexpected connection to a video game. Check out my deep dive into the noise coming from inside children, an internet mystery, here. Thank you for watching.